What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi. That's David Neal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the Miami Herald as well, so you can stay up to date on all news in South Florida. We need to pay the bills, pay the rent, pay the mortgage, all that. So,
Mortgage rent.
right? I was gonna say rent for me. We got to pay some people's mortgage out here. Okay.
Mortgage.
So we have reached the bye week for the Miami Dolphins 2022 season. And as Christian Wilkins said, the Dolphins wanted to sprint into the bye week, and that they did. They came away with a 39-17 win over the Cleveland Browns last Sunday in front of their home crowd at Hard Rock Stadium. Their fourth straight win to improve to 7-3. And most importantly, first place in the AFC East after the Bills blew that last minute game to the Minnesota Vikings shortly afterwards. So the Dolphins, all is well in South Florida, 7-3, fourth game winning streak, 7-0 when Tua Tagovailoa starts and finishes games. And they are sitting pretty as they enter the bye week. We're gonna discuss all that. We're gonna discuss the Browns game. We're gonna discuss looking ahead, how we feel about the team at the bye week. But we're going to start with the offense because I thought this was an interesting performance for the offense. You know, the past few games since Tua has come back, big numbers through the air, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards passing, big plays to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. And we had some of that, but it was kind of a quieter game for Tyreek, a quieter game for Jalen Waddle. But what we saw was the emergence of this run game. 195 yards total, the most since the 2021 season finale last year against the Patriots. 119 yards for Jeff Wilson. I mean, he's still trying to figure out where the palmetto is. And he got 119 yards on the ground. Raheem Mostert contributed 65 yards. Both of those guys reached the end zone. And Tua still, I mean, he still got his numbers. 285 passing yards, 3 touchdowns in that blowout win. And for me, I mean, I thought that this was the next step forward for this offense. I mean, we know and we've seen that they can, rack up points and move the ball through the air, Kit and Tyreek and Jalen and Mike Gesicki and all the different guys that they have at their disposal. But that running element, that running component was missing. And it was kind of surprising that it was missing because Mike McDaniel came to Miami with this reputation of being a run game guru. But he told us months ago, the offensive line is usually the unit that takes, and you mentioned it yourself, the offensive line is the unit that takes the longest to gel, to coalesce, to come together into one. So they were kind of chomping at it, and the matchup kind of allowed for them to have a breakout performance. And really, I mean, I think that with this performance, you've kind of reached that pick your poison, state with this offense. Like, do you want to stop them through the air? Okay, they can run the ball. I mean, we saw that the Browns, they clearly did not want Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to go off and win that game for the Dolphins, and they didn't. But the Dolphins offense was able to run the ball when they needed. I mean, really, whenever they wanted. That really set the tone for that game. I mean, the first drive, Jeff Wilson breaks some 10-yard runs, and then obviously at the end, Tua finds Alec Ingold for the 13-yard touchdown. But really, this was a game where you didn't count. I mean, it was kind of one of those narrative busting games again. Whatever you want to say about Tua, the latest thing was, oh, he's just feeding off of Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. But no, I mean, he got a lot of the different guys involved, 8 different pass catchers, and then again, the ground game leading the way. So, I mean, I felt even better about the offense, heading into the bye week and knowing that they were able to run the ball as well as they did. And we saw them do that in the Jets game when Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson stepped in. I think they ran for 137 yards. They had a pretty good game there, but we haven't seen that consistency. This was their best running performance of the season. We'll see if they can continue to stack that against other opponents. But I mean, you have to feel good about this offense. I mean, even before the rushing game kind of outburst, I mean, Tua was playing well, continued to play well. And now you have another element where it's like, all right, Tua doesn't have to throw 40 times a game. I mean, you can run the ball 25, 30 times a game and still be as successful. So the offense, I mean, they're rolling. I mean, I don't know if there's a more explosive offense, a more diverse offense in terms of what they can do. And like I said, all things are everything's good in South Florida because that offense is just clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, as we'd said, that once the running game comes together, and which is going to take the longest thing to come together. This offense is going to be really interesting to watch. Now it's very, very exciting to watch because they're not just pounding for 3-4 yards, and they're ripping off chunks, 7, 10, big good runs. And Jeff Wilson may not know where the palmetto is, but he knows where the hole is. So, and he knows where the holes should be in this offense, and as does Raheem Mostert. So you have two backs who played in this offense, and I think that helps obviously accelerate even this run game, because where the holes are supposed to be, or where the holes can be, and where the adjustments have to be made during a play and everything. And they got two backs who run hard, run fast, and that keeps a certain rhythm going. Also, so it keeps a certain excitement going. Like you hit it. Let's say you hit a chunk play to whoever, Gesicki, Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and if when you follow that up with okay, you want to run the ball next, okay, fine. But if you follow that up with like a 2-yard gain, that takes a little. Okay, well, it takes a little bit of juice out of what you're feeling. But if you follow that up with somebody rips off a good 7-10 yard gain,
That's deflating.
everybody,
That's deflating for the defense, but it's inflating for the offense.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's offense is still, everybody's feeling good. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep, and everybody's excited in the huddle. What are we doing next? How are we going to hurt next? And that can't be underestimated. These are professionals. These are professional athletes, but they're human beings. And, they're professional athletes playing a game. And, we talk about being motivated, inspired, whatever. It helps when they're excited and they're happy about what they're doing, and they like what they feel like what they're doing. And so this coming together makes is this Dolphins offense right now as diverse as any in the league, as far as being able to be really effective running the ball and really effective passing the ball? Probably. Kansas City doesn't run the ball very well.
Yeah.
They can pass the ball. They've got a tremendously diverse passing attack, and Mahomes can scramble and run. And who was it a couple of weeks ago? Tennessee shut down the run game, kind of shut down the deep passing game, and then Mahomes ran did a Michael Vick act in the last fourth quarter and won the game. But Buffalo still they can run the ball. They seem to be almost averse to doing it, though.
Yeah.
And they looked, Buffalo still looked great last week until they lost their all good sense in the last couple of minutes of regulation. But the Dolphins are, I think, truly probably the most diverse, successful offense going right now. And that makes you tough to stop. That makes you tough to deal with. And that also means that you don't worry as much about, cold hands and fingers if when you're in December and January and you're not playing, where it's 75 degrees on the field or on your sideline, 95 degrees on the other guy's sideline. So this gives you comfort. It should give them comfort. So yeah, they haven't had an offense really like. I was thinking about this today. When's the last time the Dolphins offense has been this good and this diverse? Because they had some great offenses, obviously, during the Marino years. Obviously, you had Dan Marino throwing to, first the Marx brothers early in his career, later in the career, later it was, it was like Irving Fryer and OJ McDuffie. But they almost never had a good running attack. And it was Don Shula even said it was his one great, felt like his one great failing as a coach in his last 10, 15 years was not being able to get a good running attack, a good running back to put behind Marino, which would have really made that whole thing even more dangerous. You really almost have to go back to like the 70s for the Dolphins being this diverse. I don't the 80 and probably the 70s when Bob Greasy actually did win the passing title in 71 and 77. Everybody thinks he threw like 10 times a game, which he kind of did in the 73 playoffs. But that was those offenses when they were 71, 72, 73, to some extent 74. That's very diverse. They could hurt you either way. Yeah, they ran the ball because it's the easiest, lowest risk, and especially back then, with the rules of coverage and the rules of blocking, you're less likely, to get a holding penalty or your quarterback sacked or your quarterback broken, as the case may be, as happened with the Dolphins. So they ran the ball. And but they could have. That was a team that could have. They could have put the ball up 30 times a game if they really wanted to back then, and been successful because they had the kind of receivers to do it, and they had the threat of the running game that would have made it all work. So yeah, you're talking the most diverse, good Dolphins offense in 50 years. That's kind of a lot.
I mean,
And let's again, it will be great. It will be nice to see if they can maintain this level of consistency and still put up big numbers against the better teams and the better defenses when they really need to. But it's not their fault that Detroit and the Bears and to some extent the Browns defenses suck. They show up, they put up the points. Hey,
yeah, they've executed. I mean, that's a testament to Mike McDaniel, to the offensive line, who, I mean, 0 sacks, 0 punts for the first time since 2003 they didn't punt in a game.
That was nearly a perfect offensive game the other day. That was nearly a perfect offensive game, and then you're not going to get that every week. But the thing is, it didn't look like they were doing anything really wild. There wasn't anything that made you go.
They were just playing within themselves, like doing what they do,
right.
And not letting anything else.
There wasn't anything where you're going, okay, that's not going to happen every week, or that play is not going to happen. You can't rely on that play happening. It's like no,
like it feels sustainable. I mean, I know that even now people are saying, oh, like, can they keep on doing this? I mean, why not? I mean, they're not. It's not gimmicky. It's not anything that we haven't seen. I mean, they have a clear system. They know how they want to utilize their players. I mean, and they're just doing that at a high level right now. So I see no reason why it's not sustainable. I mean, am I expecting 35? Am I expecting 39 points? Am I expecting 35 points a game? No. But I mean, to continue for them to execute at a high level and to score in the high 20s. I mean, I see no reason why they can't do that if barring injury, I see why not.
You would be shocked if the next game turns out 17-14.
I mean, it's the Texans, I would for sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the next game against like an NFL team,
yeah.
It's they're doing it's the trade deadline pickup of Wilson, man,
I
that's
mean, it was so under the radar. I mean, it was kind of a footnote because they got Chubb, but I mean,
but
if you're asking me right now, I mean, Wilson has made the much bigger impact than Chubb. And that's not
yeah,
to say Chubb has been bad because I mean he picked up a half sack. I mean, he was pressuring, but Wilson, I mean, even McDaniel, like he didn't want to say we were missing that kind of physicality, but they didn't have that in their
right,
backfield, before trading for Jeff Wilson. They just didn't have that.
yeah,
And I mean, he like you said, he knows the system. He runs hard. I mean, it's just something like you said, like when you see somebody running that hard and they're taking three guys to tackle them to the ground, like it really does kind of put like a battery pack in your offense, and it just kind of boosts them up. Like it's deflating on the other side because it's like, all right, you're chasing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they hand it off. And then it's like, damn, like you need four guys just to bring the running back down. I mean, it's a nice mix, and it's a solid diverse mix.
and I mean, I was watching the game again today, and there was one sequence of downs. I don't know, it was maybe a second down and maybe five, and they give it to Wilson. There's a little bit of a hole, but it looks like they're going to get him for a couple. And he
Yeah, he shimmy. Yeah, that was a
yeah,
touchdown run. He just
and then and boom, and he carries a couple guys, boom, and it turns into like just enough for a first down.
yeah.
That right there is so crushing for a defense, but also it's so like, oh, whoo, now because in the middle of that play, you're thinking, okay, in that second, you're thinking, okay, it's gonna be like 3rd and 3. And now you got a first down there, and everybody's like, "Ooh, first down! Okay, good. We're still rolling." And yeah, Cleveland's sitting there going, "Jeez, oh man, got 3 more downs of this shit. 3 more downs of this, unless they score, And yeah, I think Cleveland looked disheartened by the end of the game. I really do. That on the last touchdown run. One of the linebacker that the wide receiver blocked, there wasn't a lot of effort there out of him. He was kind of like, all right, yeah, okay, good. He got in front of me. That's good. That's fine. Go on. Take it. Um, so yeah, it's nice to see. And let's see what happens you know, after the Texans. And you know, uh it's fun to first Dolphins team in a while. It's like, it really is fun to watch, enjoyable to watch, and you get excited.
Yeah, I mean, Teron Armstead, I remember when they traded for him and he had his first, press conference, he said, like, this is going to be a physical track meet. And we've kind of seen shades of that over the first, half of the season. But that was the first game where it was like, all right, they had the track meet, they had the speed element to it. But they also had that physicality with the run game. So it really is starting to come together for that offense. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back on the other side of things, we're going to flip to the other side of the ball. The defense, after a couple shaky performances, did they get back on track against the Browns? We're going to discuss that and more, so stay locked with us. What's going on, everybody? Still here on the Dolphins In Depth podcast. Excuse me, the Dolphins In Depth podcast with David Neal, who I got tripped up. I mean, in the intermission, I mean, I don't know where you at right now. New background.
Hey, that's we're. I like my view. I like my balcony view.
No
Everybody knows
complaints.
me. Some people have their beach. I have my balcony.
No complaints there. No complaints there. So, as I teased on the other side, so the offense continues to click on all cylinders, and the defense with maybe a get-right performance against the Cleveland Browns. They limited Cleveland to a season low 297 yards of total offense. The dynamic duo of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, where they were kind of held in check. I mean, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt combined for just 72 yards. Obviously, Nick Chubb had that 33-yard touchdown run, but outside of that, not a lot of space to run for that running back tandem. Jacoby Brissett, the former Miami Dolphin quarterback, Palm Beach native, I mean, he was sacked 3 times, hit a lot more. And it's kind of the pass rush seemed a little more lively. I mean, obviously, later in that game when you kind of get into obvious passing situations. Maybe it's a little easier to pass rush. But a really, really solid performance. Obviously, the opening drive, you allow the long pass play, a couple penalties lead to opening touchdown, but the Dolphins responded with 24 straight points. The defense really tightened up. And again, I mean, I wrote about it before the bye week, like leading up to the Browns game. I mean, last year, a defensive turnaround in the second half of the season almost propelled the Dolphins to the playoffs. With the emergence of this prolific offense now, I mean, the defense is like, that's really the last piece. I mean, they got the passing game going, they unlocked the running game, and it's like, all right, if the defense plays like this more days than not, on Sundays, I mean, this is really looking like a complete team. I mean, right? I don't think you can say they're the most complete team right now because of the defense. But again, if the defense, plays up to the level of its standard, and obviously they sustained another seasoning injury with Emmanuel Ogbah, so they kind of lose some of that defensive line depth. But if they can play to the standard that we all expected to enter in the season, I mean, this does look like one of the more complete teams in the NFL. I will say, I did think that this was a matchup though that favored their strengths. I mean, I think that we talked about the strength entering the season. We talked about the strength of this defense being the secondary with Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, but healthy, Javon Holland, Byron Jones. I mean, three of those guys are out of the, or I guess two of those guys are out of the lineup with Byron Jones and now Brandon Jones. And Nick Needham, their slot cornerback, who was doing a lot of boundary stuff, he's out now. So really, the strength of this team, this defense is in its front seven, particularly that defensive line. Now with adding Bradley Chubb to Jalen Phillips, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, that group. I thought it was a matchup that really did favor them because they've been great against the run. Taking out the Justin Fields performance, the Lamar Jackson in week 2, they've been good when it comes to stopping opposing teams' running backs. Not so much when it comes to stopping quarterbacks and when they start scrambling, but when it comes to limiting running backs, they've been really good with that. So I thought that it was a matchup that they were going to be able to handle for the most part. But I will say, when you start to face different styles of offenses, particularly one, a team like the Buffalo Bills, or maybe the Los Angeles Chargers in a couple of weeks, or potentially, the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, a team like that. I think that matchup is where, I start to kind of get worried when I'm looking at the Dolphins defense, because I don't know if they have the guys in the secondary to hold up. And truthfully, I'm not sure, I mean, we've seen the track record has shown that when they face some of those more mobile quarterbacks, they've kind of struggled. I mean, even Josh Allen, he was able to move around a lot, get the ball out quickly, evade the pass rush. So this matchup against the Browns, perfect match made in heaven for the Dolphins, just because of the strength in the defensive line. But when you start to face some of these mobile quarterbacks, some of these offenses with more, prolific passing games, I mean, outside of Amari Cooper and Xavier Howard kind of really shut him out of the game, the Browns really didn't have anybody to go to in the passing game consistently. But, when you face teams like the Los Angeles Chargers, when healthy, the Buffalo Bills, potentially the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, that's a matchup where I still do kind of question if the Dolphins defense is going to be up to task.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, obviously do. And you're right. This was a perfect matchup for them. And Amari Cooper play? I mean, like,
I'm checking the stat sheet. I mean, 3 catches, 32 yards. That's about it.
so he 3 catches. In other words, 3 catches, 32 yards more than the guy who's playing wide receiver at Northwestern right now, like he used to. You might as well stay at his mama's home for all that matter. 3 catches, 32 yards. I mean, come on now. But yeah, this was a perfect matchup, and they did what they needed to do in a perfect matchup. Again, you can't control who shows up on the other sideline, but if it's a meal that's cooked cooked perfectly to your taste, you got to go ahead and eat it. And Jacoby Brissett's not a quarterback who's going to move around a lot. This is a run first attack that, needs it to really set up their wide receivers. And when they couldn't get that going, this wasn't going to happen. And yeah, okay, they gave up 17 points to modern NFL. I mean, that's
I
17
mean,
points is fine.
if the Dolphins defense gives up 17 points for the rest of the season,
Yeah,
they're
you're good. You're good.
they're gonna be fine. Yeah.
Right. And frankly, it was what was it they gave up with one touchdown. It was already what it was 30-10. And they
Yeah,
got
it was 30-10
17.
when Chubb had that 33-yard, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in the stadium really like was worried about that point. I mean,
People started leaving for traffic, beating the traffic at 30-10. Um, maybe they ran to Mari Cooper in the parking lot. But yeah, so you do question now is okay, how well it's the question we've had the last few weeks when they were giving up a lot to the Lions, and then obviously got into a shootout with the Bears also. Which seems so weird for me to say that you got into shootouts with the Lions and the Bears.
I mean, just to feel he's balling right now. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. No. But it does feel very weird that
yeah.
the Bears, shoot out with it. Come on, that's you know, and no, they clearly have trouble with. I mean, everybody has trouble with true dual threat quarterbacks, and
I think it
uh,
was a little bit of a surprise because
and
of how well they handled Lamar last year. And they didn't face a ton of those types of quarterbacks. I mean, they faced Cam later in that season, and I thought that they did play well. Yeah, but exactly. That
it's
was kind
old
of like
Cam.
exactly. So I think just kind of off the precedent of last season, the expectation was like, oh, like the Dolphins have the kind of the blueprint. And again, I mean, it's like Josh Boyer, the defensive coordinators, had to switch things up because a lot of these blitzes aren't working. A lot of the cover zero stuff isn't working. I mean, teams have definitely caught on to some of that cover zero, that blitz stuff. So they've had to switch it up a little bit, and I think that they've done well at times to switch it up. But again, they faced a very traditional offense. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
handoffs on first down, handoff on second down,
right.
maybe a play action every once in a while. And then when we really got to do when we get in obvious passing situations, then we'll spred you out and go in a shotgun. I
That's
mean,
that's
when they face that, when they face the 49ers, which is, I'll say, more of a traditional quarterback, and then the Chargers, and then the Bills, and then even Aaron Rodgers, who can still move around a little bit. I mean, it's really going to test that defense. It's going to test the offense as well, but really that defense with the types of quarterbacks that they're going to be facing along that
no.
stretch.
I no, I'd say Rodgers and Josh Allen obviously are going to we'll see, right, we'll see then what kind of defense they're going to have going into the playoffs. Um, and in the and yeah, Herbert's he doesn't he's not. I don't see him as a scrambler really,
Yeah,
and
he's not a scrambler, but he can still move around a
I
little bit.
mean, there's difference between guy with good pocket feet and who can create another second for himself and everything. Like that was something Marino was actually excellent at, arguably the best ever at. It was creating that extra second for himself with good pocket feet and a guy who can actually scramble. And Justin Herbert, he was banged up earlier this year. He's not really into like the whole. He hasn't been really into the whole scrambling thing this year. So I mean, maybe he'll be all healed up by the time of the Dolphins game, but still, he's not a guy that I see that I think of like Allen, Rodgers, Lamar. Uh, obviously, I mean, Mahomes isn't on the schedule unless you want to think about the playoffs, which
Which
you need to, which you need
yeah,
to,
you have to
yeah,
start
you
thinking
got to be
about it.
you might as well be thinking about it.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, those are the two games I'd look at, saying, okay, how well do you do against those quarterbacks there? Because you get in the playoffs, you're going to be facing, Josh Allen. You have to get past one or both or three of Josh Allen, Mahomes, um, uh, whoever is a quarterback for Tennessee. Although, no, I mean, Tannehill's now in his 11th year, but he would be called, if you were black, he'd be called to do with the right quarterback. Really, he's athletic, can move,
maybe can't move like the old Miami days, but you can still move around.
No, but I'm saying, he's in year 11, so yeah, he's kind of he's lost a top gear, but he can still cause problems. And the other quarterback they've got, there is also, he can
Malik Willis, but I'm not even. I mean, yeah, I mean that's.
I'm not. Yeah,
obviously, we'll see what happens. I mean, they're leading the division right now, but
that
if it does
also
happen,
that they'll if they get them, they're going to get them at home, I think.
yeah.
Well, maybe not. Oh, good golly, it's going to be whoever comes out of that AFC South. Yeah. Um, but so yeah, it's going to be a test run on how your defense deals with those guys, because those guys can buy, and they not only rip off, an occasional 20-yard gain on their own, but they're going to buy time for their receivers downfield. And, if you're injured on the back end, suddenly your second tier guys are going to have, where you're hoping they can hang on for, 3-4 seconds. Now they're hanging on for way more, for another 2 or 3 seconds beyond that. And nothing good ever comes of that. So I think those will be the interesting games. The Packers game, obviously, in the Buffalo rematch. I mean, I don't think the Pack, just looking down the road, I'm looking at a win against Houston, unless they're completely asleep and tryptophan out from Thanksgiving. You're and obviously Jets, Patriots, Bills, tough games. I think they're the most interesting part of that Packers game is going to be how they see how they do against Rodgers, who can still move. And I think they're going to win the game, but let's see how the defense deals with them. Is it going to be a shootout like with the other, those other NFC North teams? Those are the two most recent ones. It's the guy Kirk Cousins, the guy who can't move around. They had a pretty good game against him.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, I mean, the track record has suggested this season that some of those more mobile quarterbacks the Dolphins have had troubles with. Fortunately for them, after the bye week, they faced the Texans. Davis Mills, not really an athletic guy. More of a run-oriented offense with the rookie, I believe it's Dameon Pierce. So that could also be another solid performance, lined up for the Dolphins defense. All right, so before we get out of here, we gotta get your thoughts real quick. I'm sure you may have heard it, as we were rewatching the game. The MVP chance for Tua. And I mean, hey, earlier in the season there was a little bit of chatter. But obviously it kind of died down a little bit once Tua had sustained the concussion, missed a couple games. But hey, Tuesday night as we're recording this, Tua is second in the MVP odds according to Vegas Insider, behind Patrick Mahomes, who's still the front runner right now. But Tua's leapfrog Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, after both of them lost this past week. I mean, I think at this point it's a real possibility. I mean, especially if they keep on winning. I mean, he maybe doesn't have the numbers yet, but the efficiency is there. I think as the season continues, the numbers are gonna be close enough. And if you talk about narrative, I mean, we always talk about MVP being a narrative award. There's a little bit of Patrick Mahomes fatigue, and if Tua can get to the second, I mean, keep that second seed in the AFC, or maybe even get to the number 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, the narrative storyline is going to be right there on a platter to give the award to. What do you think?
I think I find it less interesting to talk about like odds of MVP and whether or not somebody actually deserves it, and the argument of who deserves it, and debate that have that fun discussion.
All right, well then we'll do that. Okay, so
And,
so
and
I, so
so,
I'll talk about the odds. You talk about how
so you already did. So you already did talk about the odds. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to like totally just like kneecap you and like get out of here. No, but when the times I've had in covering sports, I've had MVP votes for MVP. I actually took it literally. MVP, most
most
valuable
valuable
player,
player.
to
Yeah,
and to their team, to the team. I didn't think, oh, he's the best, most valuable player in the league, or
not the most
because that's
outstanding player, not the most,
right. It's
not the
it's
best
not,
individual.
and
Yeah,
it's right, the most valuable player. He's got to be on a good team. I mean,
a winning
but
team. Yeah,
and so the Dolphins, just the eye test. Uh, go watch go watch the Dolphins play in Cincinnati. Go watch the Dolphins against the Jets. Go watch the Dolphins
just the Vikings.
Vikings. And then watch the Dolphins any of the last 3 weeks, even some of the weeks beforehand. Just this offense and this team plays differently when he's a quarterback, and he makes it work. He I don't even care if you insult him by saying, oh, he's a system quarterback, and his system, okay, fine, but he's executing in this system. That's what a quarterback's supposed to do. And whatever system he's put into, your coach is supposed to find a system where your skills work. And so you got to fault him because apparently his coach has a system where his skills work, and he's making this whole thing work by executing properly with good wide receivers and good tight end, and now getting the help for running game. You can't, he's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's doing it at a significantly higher level than his experienced veteran backup would do. I think he's doing it at he's doing it at a better level than most other quarterbacks, at a more efficient level than almost any other quarterback in the game right now. So, and I'm not a big one for, I don't count quarterback wins. I think that is so boring because I think that's so, actually, I think it's not boring. It's stupid because, there's a defense out there on the other
But
side of the ball.
there is
There's
something to
special
be
teams.
hold up. There is
That
something to be
said,
said though for 7 and
right,
0,
right.
0-3.
You're 7-0 when the guy like starts the game and doesn't get injured, and you're 0-3 when he, doesn't start the game, or doesn't go, start to, you decide the finish. So yeah, that I think he has an excellent argument for MVP. Excellent argument for MVP, especially as if you would take it as most valuable player. And I think his main competition
Might
are
be
Josh
his
Allen and Patrick Mahomes.
Well, also might be his own teammate Tyreek Hill, who a lot of people are saying he's truly the most valuable player on that team. Now, obviously, Tyreek didn't have the biggest performance last Sunday, and the offense didn't really blink, which may have kind of put a dent in that argument. But again, if Tyreek continues to put up these numbers, I mean, how much does the MVP chatter start to build for him? How much does that maybe take away from Tua's candidacy, potential votes? Obviously, we're still 8 weeks away from
Yeah,
any of that being real legit. But I mean, something to kind of keep in mind.
it's that's kind of hard. I think that's kind of hard, uh, because again, you can obviously Tyreek Hill has brought so much to this offense. I mean, you saw Jalen Waddle was here last year. It wasn't like Jalen Waddle suddenly became Jalen Waddle this year. He was here last year. and how much more effective Tyreek Hill's presence makes him. Just being there uh, opens everything up. And yeah, but boy, it's real hard to, argue against. Yeah, he was there also when you know, when they couldn't score enough against Minnesota, and the defense really played pretty well there, except for one Dalvin Cook run.
Yeah.
Um, he was Tyreek Hill was there on, when they couldn't score enough against Cincinnati, when the defense allowed again, like, basically one big play.
Yeah, like he put up numbers, but I mean, did the
Yeah,
numbers really lead to anything tangible? That's
right.
where I felt
And
with a
it's
lot of
not
it.
like he didn't play well, but
Yeah, he did, but it's again, it's just like the wide receiver. A wide receiver can have more impact on the game than, obviously 10, 20, 30 years ago. But it's still, I mean, we say it's a quarterback war, and people
hard.
are upset about that. But I mean, if you're going valuable, it has to be because that person touches the ball every single play. They're in charge of so much, and obviously a lot of factors go into them being successful as well. But it's hard for me to look at a quarterback and a wide receiver on the same team and say that the wide receiver is more valuable when the quarterback is putting up just as excellent of numbers, and they're putting up those
Right.
numbers in instances where the wide receiver isn't having a tremendous game. I mean, it's hard for me to say Tyreek is a team MVP. I mean, so many guys. I mean, truthfully, this is an offense where like no one person should get all the credit. I mean, Mike McDaniel has been great. Tua
No.
has been great. Tyreek's been great. Teron Armstead, I mean, he is extremely valuable to this offense.
Right.
But obviously, if you're going to whittle it down to one person on the team, I got to go with Tua because he's the one who's making the throws at the end of the day.
There's been a couple times, the Larry Fitzgerald, the year that the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl, Larry Fitzgerald was incredible. And yeah, he had Kurt Warner throwing it to him, but he he was the guy, more so than Kurt. He was the guy that made that work as much as Kurt Warner. And Steve Smith, uh, good golly, which year? There's one Steve, I think it was 2005, Steve Smith. His run through West Carolina ran to the playoffs, that they got to the NFC championship game. And he was the reason. That little wide receiver outside, he was the reason. When they were able to take him out of the offense, it all fell apart. You can take Tyreek Hill out of this offense, as the Browns put a lot of effort into doing. And
it's not going to be the same, but it's still going to function.
Yeah, it's still going to function. It can still function pretty darn well. I mean, yeah, they held Tyreek Hill down compared to everybody else this season, and the Dolphins didn't punt. So, yeah. So I think it's Tua. There's not a running back out there having a great year.
Maybe Saquon.
Fantabulous year.
Maybe Saquon, but I don't. It's hard for me to. It's hard for me to just give it. Even Daniel Jones is, as much as I hate to admit it, he's playing well enough that it's like, all right, maybe it's not. The defense is playing great as well on that team.
Right. Saquon's a good suggestion, but boy,
I feel like for me, you have to have an Adrian Peterson like season. Like you have to break a record and
right.
Be like the soul.
Right. You had to be like Derrick Henry was a couple of years ago, ripping off 2K and, really.
And even he didn't get it. I mean, even he didn't get it. So it's tough for a running back or a non-QB skill position player to get it, in 2022.
Yeah. And I think, obviously if the Dolphins end with the number one seed, or if the Bills end with the number one seed, or Kansas City ends with the number one seed, guess what? You're probably going to have to take the quarterback of that team out of the number one seed in the stronger conference, and those three teams I just named. They all, ride or die with their quarterback. So much. So I mean, it doesn't. You might not, because Tua is not as doesn't run the way that Mahomes or Allen do. It doesn't give you all the highlight wildness that they do. You might not think of him as being integral to the Dolphins' success as those guys are, but he clearly is. And if they get the number one seed,
I mean, it's going to be hard to deny it.
I think that's your argument. In fact, I think that's the argument for any of those three guys if their team gets the number one seed.
Yeah, yeah, but like I said, the more the season goes, the more Tua's, the raw counting stats start to increase. If they keep on winning, it's going to be tough to deny that MVP candidacy. But I mean, hey, the fact that we're talking about that just tells you how much things have changed. So
couple months from is he going to play again because he's got a concussion, or is he going to, or is he really the guy? Is it really the guy?
Hey, I mean, he's answering all the questions. I mean, he said it himself at the post game, like nobody had any questions. He's like, hey, no questions. So he's really starting to answer them. So good for him, and we'll see how this run continues after the bye week. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I want to thank you guys so much. Bye. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Reminder to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, subscribe to the Miami Herald. Still gonna have a bunch of daily content for you guys during the bye week. So you still got some stuff to read and catch up on and stay up to date with your Miami Dolphins, who are 7-3 and in first place of the AFC East. That's something. We'll see if they can keep it up next week. You guys enjoy the week off, enjoy the weekend, and we'll be back next week to talk Dolphins football. But until then, you guys take care.